excited to dive into. We're going to talk about good debt and bad debt and dive into some examples and some explanations and talk personal debt and business debt and really just unpack it all.
And then more on that story of debt. We're going to talk about freedom. There is definitely something real about freedom when it comes to eliminating bad debt in your life. I don't really feel bad about the good debt, but the bad debt, it does weigh you down and you want to get rid of it. And we'll talk about specifically a few steps I took when I was actually over $100,000 into bad debt before starting, this business with you, Seven Figures Funding. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And for everybody out there who has bad debt, I think we've all been there at some point or stage. And so this is going to be really good, if you're in that position. Good debt versus bad debt, according to our friends at Investopedia.com. Thanks, Investopedia.
Good.
Really appreciate it. So here's what they say in terms of bad debt. Bad debt is high-interest loans such as those from payday lenders or credit cards are examples, but can make sense in particular circumstances. A loan is generally considered to be a bad debt if you are borrowing to purchase a depreciating asset. I'm going to read that again. A bad debt is when you buy something that goes down in value. Okay, perfect. Well, let's look at some examples of things that go down in value. Sometimes we buy cars. Generally speaking, they're going to go down in value. We can buy consumer goods, even electronics, right? Computers, all these TVs, things like that. Don't want to buy that on debt if we can afford it because it's going to go down in value. It's going to depreciate, be worth less. Same thing with clothes, consumables, and all these. How many times do you now buy something online, Amazon, wherever it is, and, pay later, or, break it into payments?
Oh, all the time. All the time. It's dangerous.
And what are those interest rates that they're charging?
Usually they always get you with like no interest for a few months. And in your head you're like, I'll just get this paid off. And then you think, it's only a few $100 a month. It's easy. I'm just going to leave it here. And before you know it, you're paying 20% annually over the next 3 years and can get out of hand real quickly.
100%. I remember, oh my word. I remember this was like over a decade ago when I'm bankrupt and broke. And I got like a credit card for a Dell computer. Yeah, Dell, not a great computer.
Yeah.
Anyway, got a computer card. I swear I was paying on that thing I probably paid for it 5 times.
Yeah, I believe it. You probably did.
That's an example, my friends, of bad debt. So let's move on to examples of good debt. Perfect. So borrowing to invest in and this is from Investopedia.
Yeah.
So Investopedia says if you borrow to invest in a small business, that's good. Borrow to invest in education. We're going to define education for you. Borrow to invest in real estate is generally considered good debt because you are investing the money you borrow in an asset that will go up in value. There we go. Because if you build a business, it can increase in income and value. In fact, in my experience, I don't think anything other than investing in yourself, in educating yourself about business skills and entrepreneurship, that is a great investment. College can be a good investment. Oftentimes it can be a bad investment. Most of the time we see young kids, 18, 19 years old, $50,000, $100,000 student loan. They have no idea what they want to do. They go and they get a degree in, French literature and poems in the 1700s. Well, there's only just a dozen of those jobs around the country. It's going to be tough for that one to come out on top.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to this, I actually am shocked that Investopedia, that was the first thing it says, investing in a small business.
I'm kind of impressed. Good job, Investopedia.
The only other thing I would add is they say investing in or purchasing a depreciating asset unless that depreciating asset is making you more productive.
Yes.
That is the outlier, right? The new flat screen TV, when I already have one, that's a bad debt. That is a bad purchase. But if you're sitting with an old Nokia flip phone and you decide to invest in an iPhone, that's going to make you significantly more productive. Yes, it's a depreciating asset, but it's still probably a good debt so that you can get that phone and be more productive and do your job better. So I would say the only thing I'd add to that is unless that depreciating asset is making you more productive or is making you money.
That's a great point. And same thing, like you need a car to get from point A to point B. And, you know, putting all that cash towards a car isn't the best thing either. Those rates and payments are usually pretty affordable. So getting a car loan, you know, typically makes sense. Is it a depreciating asset? Yes, it is. But I just say anytime you're going into debt to buy other stuff that doesn't generate income versus, you know, other than a business, a car, and a house, it probably doesn't make sense unless it's increasing productivity and it's a tool, right?
Yeah,
it's a tool for your business.
The mistakes we see with the cars, Leo, because cars are necessary and not everyone has $20, $30, $40, $50,000 to go put into the vehicle right away. The mistakes I see with cars is the pre-approval process is kind of broken. The pre-approval process is always going to say you can afford way more than you realistically can. So the mistake people make with cars is, oh, I got to have a car. It's a depreciating asset, but I got to have it, when they could go out and get a perfectly fine car within their budget and their affordability range of, you know, $400 or $500 a month, but they go spend $900 to $1,000. That's the big mistake people make with vehicles.
And with interest rates increasing, I believe the average car payment in America went from like $500 to $700.
Wow.
And so even more now than ever, you need to be really careful about getting an affordable car payment, because otherwise that's just money you're throwing away. Thousands of dollars a year that could be invested, that could be going towards your business and generating returns. So really important when we're talking about good debt versus bad debt.
I think we've got something. Do we have a comment?
What do we got, Jillian?
Casey says we're purchasing a deprecating car for Turo/DoorDash, etc. is a decent investment.
Absolutely. I'd consider that a business. I mean, that is
100%
a
it's business.
Yeah, it's a business. Absolutely. It's a great point.
You put a car on Turo, it's making you money. You have to have the car to do DoorDash deliveries, Uber, Lyft. It's a business expense, and it's making your business work. That's productivity. That is
And at
just
that point,
fine.
you can write off that depreciating asset. So.
Exactly. Before that, you couldn't. So fantastic. Great point, Casey. Great share. All right, let's move to our freedom topic, which is the best strategies to eliminate bad debts. And this is interesting. This was an article. Where was this article here? It's on Bankrate. So very interesting. This is Bankrate. We did Investopedia. I liked what Investopedia said. Let's see if we like what Bankrate says. So Bankrate says, all right, so if you're going to eliminate bad debts, they say, number one, pay more than the minimum payment, et cetera, et cetera. You know what people struggle with? They have to take out a credit card. Maybe they have to pay a medical expense or whatever it is, even if they took it out for the business, right? Which is fine. You took it out for the business. You're generating a good return. But then you make the mistake of just making the minimum payment. As the balance goes down, the minimum payment goes down. And so you don't actually pay more to principal.
Yeah, exactly. I think people sometimes think that minimum payment is a set number of, $100 a month, where it's not. It's typically 2 to 3% of the balance. And so as you make a payment, the balance goes down, which means that 2 to 3% is a lesser number, and people don't realize that. So you need to be going in and changing the payment or doing an additional payment.
Exactly. Obviously, the more payment you can do and pay towards principal, the quicker you're going to pay off that bad debt, which is super important. And I think one of our biggest issues, one of my biggest issues as I look back in my history financially, is not delaying gratification, right? Just buying that thing just because I could afford it, which is not what you want to do. One of the things Patrick Bet-David talks about is when you can afford something, wait an extra year before you actually, take out the loan or buy it or whatever it is, whether it's a home, a car, a boat. I mean, wait that extra year. Cars are running longer and longer than ever. So delay your gratification. And if you have a bunch of bad debt, then I think it's even more important to delay your gratification. Oh, I want to go on that, $4,000 or $5,000 cruise on the Caribbean, with my wife, husband, and spouse, partner. No, bro, no, girl. You need to wait. And you need to pay that bad shit off first, then you can go on that cruise. And I don't want you going on the cruise or doing anything, and especially when that money should be going towards paying off high-interest debt that is eating you alive.
Which is so interesting because I don't think that everyone feels this way, which is even more bizarre to me. But I remember I was like 20 years old, and I had a little bit of credit card debt. My first card ever was like it was a Costco. And it was American Express back then. It wasn't Citi. I don't know if people remember
back
that.
in the day. Yeah.
That was my very first ever credit card, and I got a little wild, went and bought a bunch of stuff, and then my buddies all say, hey, we're going on this cruise. I'm like, oh man, I already have all this credit card debt, but I can go aerate more lawns or sell more, whatever I was selling at that point. So I'm like, screw it, let's do it. So I throw the cruise on my credit card, and I remember thinking, like, sitting there on that cruise, not really being able to fully enjoy it and being so stingy about what I was doing because I was already stressed about the debt going into it. Whereas if you delay that gratification and do it from a point of financial stability, you can actually go enjoy yourself.
100%.
I don't know how people do that.
Yeah, I know you can go on all those excursions, which is the fun, right? If you're on the ship the whole time, you're missing out on a lot of stops and then meeting the people and doing the awesome activities. And you're exactly right. So that's why it's so important to, if you want to succeed financially, delay your gratification. Right now, I'm trying to teach my 14-year-old son Marcus this. He's successfully doing a car detailing business right now, and so I was talking the other day, how much did money make? Oh, I made $150 in one day. I'm so proud of you. That's great, fantastic. And I monitor his bank account, and his bank account doesn't seem to make any progress. It goes up, and then it comes down further. It goes up. It's not making progress. I'm like, dude, you got to start delaying your gratification. Stop just because you made some money spending it. Start making a rule that you're not going to spend 50% of your money and let it build up. Because if you keep on spending it, you'll never be able to start that business. You'll never be able to get ahead. Like, you have to be able to delay your gratification. We have this YOLO mentality, you only live once thing going on. And yeah, YOLO, that's great. And because it's YOLO, let's live our life right. Let's delay our gratification so we can actually save money, go on that cruise, enjoy it, because otherwise you'll just become a slave to that bad debt. Now, interestingly, talked about the snowball method from Dave Ramsey. Shout out to Dave. And this is basically, let's say you have 4 bad debts of 20, 15% interest. Well, pay off the smallest one first, then the next smallest, and then you start using all that money that you used to pay the other 2 to pay off the next one, and boom, all this, what you snowball it, you kill it. So that is a great strategy. Now, there was something interesting that they put on this. Oh, I know what it was. So they're like, okay, you should refinance your debt. Cool. One of the strategies we utilize with clients every single day is they come to us with like 20 grand in maxed out cards. If you're paying 20% interest on that, you're paying $4,000 a year in interest. A year. And so if we can help you move that over to 0% interest accounts, now the mistake most people make is they think they'll qualify. You're going to have to pay those card balances down first, but you can move all that debt over to 0% interest and literally save $4,000 a year, $6,000 every 18 months, because some of these accounts are 0% for 18 months. That's a great strategy when you understand what it takes to qualify. So I like that. And then,
you know what else I've seen work along those lines where, you know, maybe you are pretty maxed out and you can't qualify for new funding, and all of your debt is held on 25% interest on, so let's just say, this Capital One card, whereas you have a Bank of America card sitting with no balance, even though it's a 25% APR as well. You can call Bank of America and say, hey, you know, I've got all this debt over here. I want to move it over. I can pay it off over the next year. Will you give me like an incentive period or a better rate to execute a balance transfer? They want that debt. They want to hold that debt. So they'll say, yeah, sure, we'll send you a check with 0% for 12 months, move all that money over and get it paid down. People, these credit cards want that debt. They will do that for you. You just have to make the call.
Yeah, I like Citi's good at that. Discover's good at that. Capital One are really good at that, where they'll give you a 0% interest offer, and then you just take, all right, I'm paying 20% over here. I'll take the new 0% over here. And then all those payments now go towards principal, and you're knocking that debt down without paying any interest. That's what we call smart money strategies, and that's a big value bomb Ty just dropped with you guys.
People always think it has to be a new credit card. It doesn't. You can call them and negotiate that.
Brilliant. Utilize your assets that are lazy assets right now, those cards just sitting there, and use those 0% offers. And then, you know what happens? People like do their taxes and they get like a tax refund, and this is exactly what we're talking about. You know, you've got $10,000 in bad debt, and you just got a $5,000 refund, and you can pay down half of your debt and really be on your way to getting rid of bad, crappy debt. Or you go on the cruise, and I think 9 times out of 10, most people go on the cruise.
Yeah, which is so weird because you'll feel good, you'll have fun, maybe, if you're not scared of debt for 5-6 days on the cruise. But getting out of debt, you can feel good every single day, and it's just it's so backwards. So yeah, again, you have to be disciplined enough to recognize that debt and recognize what being debt free actually feels like, and just Make it happen.
Accountability. Like,
Yeah.
think if your parents didn't hold you accountable growing up and you know it and you're like, damn, I needed my butt spanked a few more times. Sometimes you have to spank yourself, say, sorry, I'm not going on that cruise. I got to pay off that bad debt and so forth. Now, one of the strategies that Bankrate put in there, that was one of their last strategies, it says, settle for less than you owe. Yay. Ty, what happens if I call up Bank of America and I owe 10 grand and I pay 4 back? And they say, okay, we're going to eliminate the debt, but what happens?
Your credit will absolutely tank, and you'll never be able to work with Bank of America again, period.
And how long is that going to weigh on my credit?
At least 7 years just with the collection. But
Yeah.
as we have seen, okay, it has to come off your credit in 7 years, but Bank of America is never going to forget that. And so you're killing your relationships with different lenders.
100%. Not only, okay, great, I saved $6,000 with Bank of America, but because I have that negative account, my score is going to stay down 40 or 50 points lower than it would have for the next 7 to 10 years, which means I'm going to be paying probably tens of thousands of dollars in additional interest. And so that's fool's gold, where you think you made progress, you didn't. That negative account is going to stay on there forever. They're never going to take it off for at least a decade, and it's going to keep you from qualifying for better rates on mortgages, car loans, business, or even actually keep you from even getting funding in the first place for 3 to 5 years after that. It is one of the worst things you can do. And so all these debt relief companies are debt bullshit companies, and I would run away. And at the end of the day, there's really one foolproof way to kill your debt, and that's to increase your income, and then use that increased income to pay off the bad debts, not to go spend it on more stuff. And so I really feel like that's the key. What do you think about that strategy of, because everybody just focuses, how many ads do we see about budget, 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 budget? Well, after you've budgeted, there's only a little bit of money left over to pay your bad debts. You've got to make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's crazy is what just a little bit more money can do when it comes to paying off bad debt and paying off credit cards. Like literally jumping in and driving Uber, doing DoorDash, Turoing out your vehicle. We're here about 30 minutes south of Salt Lake City, and we have an employee that lives about 15 minutes north of Salt Lake City. And I was talking to him the other day, hey, I guarantee you there are all sorts of people every day that need to get from Lehigh to Salt Lake City. You should get set up with, what's it called? Uber.
Yeah,
and
Uber.
see if you've got to drive past the airport every single day anyway. Why don't you just jump on Uber and pick someone up and drop them off? And now you've paid for all your fuel plus part of your car payment. It's little things like that. You don't have to go get another job and work from 9 to 5 and then again from 6 to 11. You don't have to do that. Just find little ways to supplement that income, and it'll make a huge difference.
Exactly right. And then when you get home at night, there's so many different businesses that you can work 24 hours a day, whether you're doing some online reach out to help someone with financing or marketing or whatever side hustle you can start. And you can do that from 9 p.m. to like 10:30 p.m. every night. Are you going to sacrifice watching some TV with your spouse partner? Yeah, you are. But you're going to be so much happier when you do, and you can make more money and kill that bad debt and eliminate it. And then now you can actually start saving money to invest, and that's when everything changes, when you can create new income streams because you're saving to invest. And that, my friends, is...
There's one that they left out, Leo,
Ooh, what you got?
which we do a lot, and it's called a credit partner.
Oh, I like
Right.
that.
This is another really, really good way to eliminate bad debt if you have someone that believes in you and trusts you and wants to help you out. If you're completely maxed out and over leveraged and your credit's really bad, well, what if you have a spouse that's not in that situation? That spouse has good credit and can go through and set up a few new 0% interest accounts. You can now then transfer your debt over to those and still take the responsibility and actually pay them, but you're paying straight principal now instead of 25% interest. And so I've seen people do this all the time, just nature of what we do. I see parents come in and do it. I see spouses, I see friends, I see business partners. Granted, yeah, they do have to get some more funding. They do have to kind of put their credit out there. But if it's going to save you thousands and thousands of dollars and they believe you're responsible enough to actually make those payments, it's worth the ask.
And sometimes it's easier for them to, say, okay, you can take out a new 0% account to kill your debt versus, hey, mom, dad, I need $10,000 hard cash to pay off my bad debt, and then I'll pay you back. That's a tougher ask.
I mean, if you're paying 25% interest, offer to pay them 10. Then it's a win-win. That's the whole scratch their back first mentality.
Yeah,
So
make it a win for them. I like that.